Well, hi again, everybody. My name is Greg Anderson, and this is the Good Timekeeping Show with Greg Anderson. Now, a few weeks ago, I bought another watch. There was a little bit of a discount on it. I saved like $10 or $15. So, as you can tell, it doesn't take much to tempt me to buy another watch. This is a watch similar to ones that I've already owned, and well, aside from the discount, I was curious about the color of this watch because I just wasn't quite clear. Well, anyway, I'll explain more in this part that I've already recorded. All right, let's look in the case today and see what we have. It's a collection of analog Casio tough solar radio-controlled watches. Oh, look at all those. Most of these use the same module, except this is an older one, so that's not the same module. And this is a G-Shock, so that's not the same module. And this is also a G-Shock. But the rest of these are all using the same module. This one here has a titanium case, and so does that one. The rest are stainless steel. That has kind of the fabric watch bands. But, you know, they're all basically the same. But today I wanted to focus in on this unusual one right here. This is just such an unusual watch. I've had my eye on it for quite a while. And one of the things that has kind of bothered me about this watch is I couldn't quite figure out what color it was. And when I see it in person, it does not quite look like it does in, the product illustrations that come from Casio. And in fact, I'm not even sure that in this video, it looks quite the same as it does to my eye. In the product illustrations, I was like, what color is that? It's kind of a goldish, like a spicy mustard sort of a color. What is that? In person, the gold color is not as evident. It looks more like a silvery pewter kind of a color with a little bit of a gold accent when you turn it in the light just right. So I'm still not sure that I'm giving you an accurate depiction of what this color really looks like when you have this watch on in person. But I'll tell you what, it doesn't cost that much, so I decided to just buy it and find out what color it is. And I like it now that I have it in person, and that's been the case with most of these Casio watches. Even if I look at the pictures and think, maybe that's not as good looking as I want it to be, they almost always look better looking to me in person than they do in the pictures. This is the WVAM630D-9AJF. So I bought it from the Japanese market. And so all those little letters that come after the model number indicate, colors and where you might find it. So I found someone on eBay that sent this from Japan, and that's when I got it. Uses module 5161, and there are several Casio analog watches that use that same module. In fact, most of those ones I showed you a moment ago. Modules 5161. So let me go through some of the basic functions and features of module 5161. It's not quite as intuitive as some watches because there are only 3 buttons here. There's no button here on the upper left side, and usually that's the button. That's where you'd have a button for adjusting things. But in this case, the backlight button over here, and you can see it a little bit in this picture when I push this button on the upper right side. A little light comes on down there at the 6 o'clock position and kind of lights up the face. I'll show you that in the dark in just a moment. So in order to get into the setup functions, you have to press and hold that button for a few seconds, and you start to get into the different setup modes. So here you go. If you want it to be a 12-hour or 24-hour display here in the digital LCD readout, that's where you would set that. Right there. I'm pushing the button now on the lower right side for that, or go to the different modes for setting up. I push this button here on the lower left side, and this is where I set my home time zone, in this case the mountain time zone in the United States. So that's where I set that. Press it again, and this is where I can tell it to have daylight saving time displayed automatically, or I could have it be always off or always on. I'll leave it on automatic. Push the mode button again, and this is where I can manually set the time, seconds, hours, minutes. I can also set the year, the month, and the date. So you can do the manual setup, but this is a radio-controlled watch, so when it has the ability to receive atomic time information, it will override your manual setting on the time and date information. If I push this button again, then this is where I can have it mute. Let's display the difference. Okay, so when it's on this right here key with a little musical note on there, then every time I press a button to change modes, it's going to make a little bit of a beep, but I can mute that. That's where I set that right there. If I didn't have it muted, then every time I pressed a button, you'd hear a sound like this. So if you don't want to have that beeping, you want to be a little bit more discreet, this is where you can mute that sound. Push that mode button again, and this is where I can set the language for the day of the week display. So this is English, so it's going to say Saturday for today and abbreviate that SA. But I could have it set for, that's German, it would be the same for this particular day. Spanish would be the same for this particular day. That's Chinese. That's Japanese, and back to English. So I'm going to leave that back to English. That's the only thing that it affects is the abbreviation of the day of the week. Set your language there. And we're back to, the 12-hour thing. So those are your basic setup things there, and you can get out of setup by pushing that light button again. All right, you see the hands were kind of frozen while I was in that setup, but as soon as I got out of setup, the hands raced back to show the correct time. In your default timekeeping mode, right here you can either have the abbreviated day of the week and day of the month right there in this display, or if I press this button here, I could just have it display the seconds, which should match up with the second hand there, or I could have down here the digital time in either 12-hour or 24-hour mode, while the analog hands are showing the time up there. Okay, get to the next mode, and well, this is where it tells you that the battery is well charged. This particular watch has the tough solar feature from Casio, which means that this unusual color face here of the watch has a solar cell built into it. So with regular exposure to just normal everyday lighting conditions, this solar cell will charge the internal battery or capacitor and keep that charged sufficiently. And right now it's at a high charge, so we're in good shape as far as the battery charge is concerned. If it gets down to medium, you should charge it up, but the watch will still run just as it normally would, even with a medium charge on the battery. If it gets lower than that, then some of the functions start to shut down until you charge it up. But I've had really good experience with these tough solar watches. So most of the time, again, just with everyday lighting conditions, it'll keep the battery topped off, and all the functions will be available. Okay, so if I go here and push this mode button again, it's a world time mode, and I can choose some other time zone to be displayed. In this case, I've chosen UTC, or Greenwich time. So while it's showing the local time here, it's going to show my world time in this digital display. And I can change that by pushing, if I push this button down here, it will be as though I'm going eastward on the map, selecting some other time zone. So, then it'll change and show me that other time zone depending on what I've chosen there. But that's where I make that selection. I'm going to take it back to UTC, London. Okay, well, I'll play with that later. Okay, next mode is the alarm mode. This has 5 alarms plus an hourly signal. And in this case, I've left the hourly signal on, but I can choose those other alarms. And now once I've selected one of these alarms, and right now, they're set to off, but if I wanted to turn this one on, or if I wanted to change it, I would hold down this light button up here on the upper right side for just a moment. And, okay. Now it's allowing me to either change the time or go here to where it's now going to be turned on, or if I push this button down here, I could turn it off. So that's how I make that selection. Push this again, and this is where I could turn the hourly signal on or off by, again, holding down the light button until things start to blink, and that's on or off. So again, it's a little bit less intuitive than the watches that have 4 buttons, but once you get used to it, it's not so bad. Okay, then you've got a stopwatch here, and this stopwatch will go, you start and stop it using that button down there. And if I push that, I'm trying to figure out how to get to I guess I don't have a split timer on this. I just have a start and stop. Again, one of the limitations of not having 4 buttons. So I've stopped it, and if I hold this button down, again, the same one that I used to start and stop it, that would take it back to 0. So there's my stopwatch. There's my countdown timer. And in this case, I can start and stop it right there, and I can reset it here. Okay, also if I hold down this button up here, the light button, long enough till things start blinking, then I can move that ahead. So I believe this one goes up to 100 minutes. Yeah, and so if I set it to all zeros, that would give me a true 100-minute countdown timer if I do that. And again, if I can stop it, hold the same button down to reset it back to whatever the starting time was. And so those are basically all the functions and modes on this. Oh, but I should tell you that the stopwatch is a 1-hour stopwatch, so if you keep it going past 1 hour, it's going to reset to 0 and keep going. So you can time things that last more than 1 hour, but you'll have to keep track of how many hours it is while the watch is keeping track of how many minutes, seconds, and hundredths of a second it is. It's not showing you hundredths of a second right now while it's running, but when I stop it, it will alternate between showing me the minutes and seconds and hundredths of a second right there. So, all right. So, the stopwatch, not too bad. Okay. Let me tell you a little bit more about the atomic time reception on this watch. If I push this button here on the lower left side and get into where it's showing me the state of the battery charge, and then from here, I push the other bottom button here on the right side, this shows me, see, it's got that looks like a little, reception tower of some sort there, and RC for radio control. It's showing me the last time it was successfully able to receive atomic time information. It's got Multiband 6 from Casio. So actually, no matter where you are in the world, this is going to try to receive atomic time information, perhaps, from any one of 6 atomic time transmitters. Well, maybe not anywhere in the world, because like if you're in Australia, you'll be out of range. But otherwise, if you're within range of, there's one in China, there are 2 in Japan, there's one in North America, WWVB. Also, there's one in the UK and one in Germany. So if you're within range of any of those transmitters, this will try to receive atomic time information from any of those transmitters and keep itself updated, to the correct time. Otherwise, it runs like a normal quartz watch, quartz accuracy to within, a few seconds a month. But when it does receive atomic time information every day, it's only going to be off by a fraction of a second every day, and it's going to stay pretty accurate. And the only thing you really have to do with this watch is, change the time zone if you move to a different time zone. But otherwise, hey, you don't have to change the battery. You don't have to set the time because of the radio control. That's not bad. So yeah, tough solar and Multiband 6. That's some of my favorite stuff in these Casio watches. Now, otherwise, you can manually make it receive atomic time information when you want to, but it's going to try to do it automatically starting at midnight. And it'll take anywhere from 2 to 10 minutes to try to properly receive and analyze the time data that it's receiving. But if it doesn't work the first time at midnight, then it'll try again at 1 a.m. and then at 2 a.m. and 3 a.m. It'll try up to 6 times every night. But if it does it the first time, it won't try again until the next night. If it does it the third time, it won't try again till the next night. That's how it works. This one was able to set itself, look at that, 3:33 this afternoon. So, maybe about an hour and a half ago, because I manually told it to do that. So if I didn't want to wait for automatic time reception overnight, and it does that because reception is better overnight. This particular kind of radio reception is better overnight. But if I wanted to force it to receive atomic time information at any other time in the day or night, what I do here is I press and hold this button on the lower right side. So if I press and hold that for just a few seconds, okay, now it says it's trying RC. It's trying its reception for radio control. And right here, it's difficult to see because it's so small, but there's a little R. And the second hand is pointing to the R, telling you that it's trying to receive the information. And after, a minute or so, maybe quicker, if it's getting good reception, then that will point to a little W up here. And so that means it's trying, and the W means it's getting good reception. And then again, it should take, it did it. Okay. It should take another 2 to 10 minutes to set itself. I'm not sure if it'll set itself automatically right now because I have the lights on and, maybe some radio interference from some of the equipment I'm using. But that's what it normally does automatically, or when you tell it to manually receive. So you just kind of wait it out if you want to watch it receive and set itself to the right time. In this case, it's pretty close to the right time already, so you may not really see much except the second hand will go back to normal operation when it's able to receive. And there it was able to get its atomic time reception anyway, but despite all this equipment I'm using right there. So now if I push this button, it goes back to normal operation, but let's see, I can go back here and check it again for when was the last time it was able to receive, and it's showing me that it just did that a moment ago. Now I wanted to show you the bracelet on this watch because it's kind of nice. It's a design I've had with some of these other ones from Japan. You don't need any tools to adjust the size of this bracelet. All you do, see, normally it's clasped like that, right? If you unclasp it and then you take this one right here and you move that up there, then that allows this part of the bracelet to move freely inside there. And so you just adjust it to the size that you need for your wrist, move that down like that, and then when you clasp it, there it is, the right size for your wrist. And if it's not right, just take that out, make it a little bit tighter or a little bit looser, just like that. Try it again. So it's kind of a nice way to, again, get that to the right size without having to use any tools. Let's just take a quick look and see how much this one weighs. Okay, well, 91 grams. That's not too bad. Compare this to, say, another one like it. Yeah, same weight. And now here's one that's very similar that has a titanium bracelet. So that one's a little bit lighter. Here's that one with kind of the fabric kind of canvas bracelet. That's much lighter. All those watches using the same movement. And well, here's a popular G-Shock watch. So not too bad as far as watches go. A little bit heavier than some of the others I've compared it to, but it's really a comfortable watch. I wouldn't worry about the weight. Now there is some glow-in-the-dark material on the face of the watch, so that's kind of nice. It has that there. Otherwise, if I show you the backlight, it's not the greatest backlight ever. It looks better maybe on video than it does in person. It lights up the face pretty well. You can see that the LCD display is kind of hard to see even with that backlight coming from the bottom of the face, but that's what you get. And finally, the crystal on this is nothing too special, so you probably have to be pretty careful about not wanting to get it scratched. You can see how it kind of sticks out from the case of the watch a little bit. It's a nice flat crystal, so it may be vulnerable to scratching and stuff. Just be careful with it and you'll probably be okay. Or Polywatch is a miracle worker. I've had some Polywatch success if you were to scratch up a crystal like that. But being kind of exposed the way it is, sticking out from the case the way it does, I would say just be careful. It's probably easy to scratch that. So there you go. Overall, I like the color of the watch. It's kind of a difficult color to describe, and I don't know that I've really made it clear even on this video. But it has well, I would say like a pearlescent kind of a thing. At different angles, it might look like a different color. Kind of like some of those cars that have sort of a pearlescent paint job. That reminds me of that. So, there are some other watches in the lineage line of Casio watches that are also similar to this and use the same module. So in the American market, if you're looking for a watch that uses this module, there's only a couple that you can get. But in the international market, there are dozens of different varieties of watches. And these instructions on how to set it up and how to use it would be the same for all of those watches that use the same module, whether it's just a Casio Waveceptor or a lineage model. So anyway, that's all for now. I will have more watch reviews coming up and more time information, so please stay tuned for more episodes of The Good Timekeeping Show.